Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagen. We are back in studio for another fun-filled, action-packed episode of Iowa Conservative News and Politics. Thankfully, we were able to work through some technical difficulties, and we're back here. But John Hendrickson and Chris Ingstad are here today, so welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Really good to be here.
I know. They had to sit here in awkward silence for, a couple of minutes while I figured out how to press the appropriate button to actually record. So we're rolling, and these guys have managed to keep up the enthusiasm all the way through. But John, the new year is upon us. Are you ready to go? Are you going to be able to replicate all of the great work you did in 2022?
I hope so.
Well,
that inspires a lot of confidence right there, that response.
All right. I hope so too, John. Chris, are we going to have another fantastic year?
We are. I'm going to call it right now. We're going to have a great year as a family of organizations and as a state. And, personal New Year's resolutions, we got a little bit of time to make those yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be, for me, something that is health related that I'll.
Well, as the clearly healthiest one of the three of us on this podcast, you're throwing down, because if you're going to get healthier, the rest of us are.
Yeah, I think I'll probably get off track within the first week or so.
Well, good. That's to be expected.
It's a lost cause for me. So
not at all. It never is, John. Well, clearly, and we said that to kind of joke to get things started off, but it has been an absolutely tremendous year in Iowa politics. Many things have happened, but tax policy, which is our core mission here at Iowans for Tax Relief, there's been a lot that's happened, and we've talked about it, but I thought it would be good, John, to bring you in and kind of go over what really has happened, maybe not just in Iowa, but around the country. Mm-hmm. It has been a huge year in tax policy, one that, as excited as we are about the future, we may not see a year like this again. Not to say we're slowing down at all, but you've done some real work in going back and recapping what's happened and what Iowans should look forward to. So I'm going to let you take it away and talk about, I guess, first in Iowa, what has happened, just to reset that for folks.
Well, we've talked a lot about the historic tax reform package that they passed this year, which creates a low flat tax, 3.9% by 2026, and gradually phases down the corporate tax. Well, some of these changes will start next year, 2023.
Yeah, people thought Christmas was over. They're done unwrapping presents, but they got a big tax present they get to unwrap starting January 1, right, John?
That's right, yeah. So right now we have 9 income tax brackets. Starting January 1st, that goes down to 4 brackets. And so the top rate now is 8.53%, and the top rate in January will be 6.5%. And then each year that's going to be phased down until we hit that flat tax rate of 3.9%. The same is true with the corporate income tax, which currently is at 9.8%, relatively high. They have we don't need to go into details, but that's going to be gradually phased down based on corporate tax revenues. And already, because of those revenues coming in, we'll start out with an 8.4% corporate tax rate. The other thing is, a big thing, especially for people that are retired, is starting in January, the state of Iowa will no longer tax retirement income. And so that's a big plus for seniors and in keeping people in this state. The other thing is and this is what, and you reminded me of this, Chris, was the inheritance tax continues to be phased down, and that's on a path to elimination. So those are some big changes coming in Iowa for taxpayers. There's a lot of good news for taxpayers.
Now, to be clear, those rates and those changes go into effect January 1 for income in 2023. In other words, as folks start to receive their tax forms next month and start to build up to that April 15th filing date, all of those tax filings are still done under the old system. So that the tax returns are getting ready to prepare and file won't get the benefit of this. But the income we start earning next month is now subject to this new lower flatter fare, better system.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
That's a good important piece to point out, and that we want the immediate benefit, but these things do take time to implement. And I think we've discussed this before, is that we've had 3 very large income tax reform bills over the last 5 years, and at least among those 3, each time we pass the next one, it's before the one before it has been fully implemented. And so we've leapfrogged these different tax bills, but now we're at a point where we're now starting to implement things that have been passed. We're at a fresh start, and now we're really going to start to see that individual income tax stepped down. So again, next year, most Iowans will see that real benefit in the taxes that they pay the following year, right? So, think of it this way: if you wanted the benefit when you file your next income tax return, you may not see it, but when you go to work on January 2nd, or whenever the first day back at work is, those dollars that you're earning that day are now being taxed at a lower rate.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Good. All right, John, did we have the biggest tax bill in the country last year?
We did. This 2022 has been kind of referred to as a state flat tax revolution, and Iowa was certainly the leader in that. We had the most extensive tax reform bill that was passed among all the other states, and there's been a tremendous amount of activity among the states of lowering tax rates, and that's one thing Iowa has not gotten a lot of credit for, because we tend to be that flyover state. So, but our tax bill, and even tax scholars like Patrick Gleason have pointed out that Iowa has the most extensive tax reform this year, and it's something that we should be proud of, because Governor Reynolds and the legislature have really put taxpayers first, and I think that is something that needs to be acknowledged. In the way Iowa has done the tax reform is very important, because I would argue that prior to this, North Carolina was the gold standard for state tax reform, because they have the formula that works, which is conservative budgeting and lowering rates. And Iowa's doing exactly that. So I'd say there's now 2 gold standards for states to look at. Besides North Carolina, Iowa's now that, because the governor and the legislature understand that taxes and spending go together, and they have done a good job of controlling spending, prudent budgeting, and lowering tax rates. And that's sort of the formula for a successful pro-growth tax policy. And Chris, you made an important point about these things take time to be implemented. And some people say, well, why can't you cut my taxes now? Or why can't we just simply eliminate the income tax? Because you have to take in consideration the budget. Government has to fund the priorities, which Governor Reynolds and the legislature have done. And so state tax policy has to be prudent, because we can't act like the federal government. We can't cut taxes and then continue to spend beyond that. So there's some other good news as well from across the states. North Carolina is lowering their income tax
Again,
and they're on the.
maybe we should keep ours going down then.
That's. And we're
We're talking about that. We may even get there today yet. So
and that's one thing, and I think Governor Reynolds and the legislature understand that we cannot be complacent, because even when we hit that 3.9%, other states are lowering rates as well. So North Carolina is going to phase out their corporate tax. Their income tax is a flat 4.7%. Arizona right now has the lowest flat tax in the nation at 2.5%. Idaho moved to a flat tax at 5.8%. Mississippi moved to a flat tax at 5%. And North Dakota, the governor of North Dakota came out just a few weeks ago and with his budget address, calling for basically a 1.5% flat tax. And if they pass that, North Dakota will have the lowest flat tax in the nation. So,
well, okay, if they pass that.
yes.
But of these states that you listed, Arizona, Idaho, Mississippi, and North Carolina.
Chris, might you by chance be reading from a recent Foundation article that folks can check out?
Yes, itrfoundation.org.
Okay, good,
you can read all about it. But, John, 4.5% down to, let's see, 3.9% is a lot lower than some of these other numbers. So we're doing pretty good.
We are.
But
yeah.
and we're not competing with these other states so that we can win the prize. We're competing in these other states so we can be more competitive.
That's exactly right.
When we're talking about winning businesses and workers and growing the state, we're doing it for our own benefit, not so that we can hang an award on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the award's nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, but we are actually succeeding in this competition for economic growth.
Yeah.
The rate itself is not the thing for us. It is a really important tool to get to the thing, which is more growth, more opportunity, more people, more jobs, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yes.
And look at what the budget is. Close to a $2 billion surplus. The reserves, $830 million. I think that's at their statutory limit.
Yes.
So they're full. Taxpayer relief fund is close to $2 billion and projected to increase. This is the key that the governor and the legislature have done with keeping spending under control and then prudently cutting taxes. I would say this is an example of similar to what Calvin Coolidge did in the 1920s.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah. He made.
You don't need to tell our listeners that.
He made sure that spending in a sense comes first. Limit the spending, and then cut taxes, and that was what Coolidge and his Treasury Secretary Andrew Mellon did. And so I think really, Governor Reynolds is kind of following in that same tradition.
I think that's right. I'm glad you brought up the surplus that the state budget is running and the amount of money that the state is sitting on in reserve. Is that these tax cuts are really being done into current and projected surpluses. And so they held the budget on the front end. I want to make sure we point out again that we're not cutting taxes and then we'll figure out the budget on the back end. That this was all done inside of a projected amount of what the state budget is currently, the projected needs of the state budget with a reasonable growth rate over the next few years. But and I want to wrap up with this, is that not only is the tax bill of 2022, was that passed inside of that projection, right, of available funds to do it. But since the time that tax cut was passed, the state budget's surplus has grown since then. And we've talked about what's next. Governor Reynolds has begun talking about what's next. And so as we, I don't want to get into New Year's resolutions because we weren't really doing that just yet, but it appears that maybe not for calendar year 2023, but what's next, the resolution is to continue cutting income taxes because we have the foundation to do it and we have the leaders to do it. And as we look into a new year and beyond, there's more to come. This is the point when I talk and then I make that pause after I end up talking that you guys are supposed to come in and say something else because my little monologue was over at that point.
I'll just add that there's a lot of economists thinking that 2023 might enter into a national recession.
Right.
And we've talked about this before.
One that even the president might acknowledge as a recession?
Yes.
Okay.
But more importantly, I think, and we've talked about this on a previous program, that because of the fiscal policies that Governor Reynolds and the legislature have done, I think Iowa's prepared for that. I mean, a recession will impact everyone, obviously, but it's look at the basket cases of states like California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey. I mean, those states are not prepared for any type of recession or emergency. And so Iowa has done a great job. I mean, that doesn't mean we have problems, but I think overall, the fiscal policies are working, and that's why, I was really proud when Governor Reynolds got that A ranking from the Cato Institute, because that was a national recognition that she deserves for being a fiscally conservative governor, and I think that's important. That was a highlight of this year.
And I think maybe to summarize that at the end, John, is that not only are we've cut taxes, we've put ourselves in a great position to survive a recession that may come, but what does that look like on the back end of that recession? Because these things are cyclical, and when that economy picks back up again, we are going to be in a tremendous position to carry on even further with economic growth in this state, with our ability to continue to cut taxes for folks. Is that, yes, there's going to be challenges with a national recession, but we're facing them already. We saw previously what the cost of Christmas is going to be, but there's really exciting times ahead for the state for the long term. And that's exactly why we're doing these things. Yes, we don't want to pay any more than taxes than we have to, but thinking about what Iowa looks like down the road for the next generation is incredibly exciting. So that's why I'm here.
Agree.
That's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And let's go.
Agreed.
Great. We all agree. So if the three of us agree, it must be the right thing.
There you go.
All right. Well, appreciate that. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the ITR podcast. Make sure that you check us out on YouTube as well. We've got a video of this, and you can actually video proof that John actually does enjoy this. I'm not just dubbing in the laugh track over him, that he is really enjoying himself here. So tell your friends, and we will see you next time.